As you know, on Tuesday morning I sent a letter to the caucus leaders, and I also sent the bills that we've submitted to the reviser at just about noon today, just 5 hours before the deadline I set for 5 o'clock to reach agreement on the language for those three bills. I got a letter from Speaker Doubt raising objections to some of the matters in the bonding bill and raising other unspecified objections to the tax bill. The tax bill is the same bill that the legislature passed with the correction made to the bingo halls with the addition of the high school league tax exemption, which we've agreed to, and then changes in the effective dates based on the fact that it's now going to take effect in January rather than last May, which Commissioner Bowerly has discussed with Chair Davids as well as Chair Skoy for weeks now. And there just shouldn't have been any surprises there. There are a couple of very minor technical changes which again have been vetted with staff. Commissioner Bowerly and Representative Davis too have spent hours going through this and reaching an agreement, which now the Speaker evidently wants to scuttle. The bonding bill is the best representation of the meeting we had. Now it's almost 2 weeks. It was December 2nd, where Speaker Dowd agreed to take the cash out. He agreed to give up the earmarks on the highway projects, and then to accommodate the projects that I wanted. And in order to do that and keep the rest of the bonding bill intact, required the use of appropriation bonds. He did not object to that. So if he has particular issues with particular projects in that bill, he's had 2.5 days to respond and tell me which ones he finds objectionable, and we could try to work that out. But you know, he's down in the Virgin Islands. I left him a message this morning. I haven't heard back. And so we're 2 hours away from that deadline, in which case we won't have a bonding bill or a tax bill to consider for the next Tuesday special session. That brings us to the real reason to have a special session, which is 121,000 Minnesotans still need some premium relief for their health insurance. And we've had 1,300 calls this week from people who are desperate to know what their situation is. We got the deadline to qualify for January 1st coverage, which is the end of today, and people don't know whether they're going to get a 25% reduction in their premiums. And for us not to act on this, for us not to honor the promise that so many candidates made last fall, that they were deeply concerned about this and we're going to do something about it, is really just unconscionable. So I have asked the Speaker whether he's agreeable to a special session next Tuesday to pass solely the health care premium relief. Senator Bakk, with whom I did speak this morning, indicated he's supportive of that. Representative Hartman, I left a message for Senator Gazelka this morning. I have not heard back from him, so I can't comment there. But obviously, with the majority in the House, Speaker Dowd's concurrence is necessary. At 2:42 this afternoon, we got a bill back from House staff after our staff met with them last Thursday about the language in the health care bill that I have drafted. And they said they would get back to us on Monday afternoon, and now we get on Thursday at 2:42 their response, which makes numerous changes in the bill. And so, you know, it's hard to deal with people who, first of all, aren't in town and aren't even in the country, and secondly, to deal with people who don't keep their word, and thirdly, to deal with people who would put their own particular interests ahead of the best interests of 121,000 Minnesotans who are, many of whom are desperate, really desperate, to be able to afford their health insurance premiums. And you know, we owe them that response. We owe them a special session next Tuesday to focus on the health premium relief bill. And I haven't even had a chance to look at the draft that's just come back from the House staff. I'll look at that after this press conference and see if we can work something out. But we agreed at the meeting on December 2nd, that's almost 2 weeks ago, we agreed to the language in my proposal for the rebate. We agreed to that. The 4 leaders and I agreed to that. And we proceeded on that basis. And now we're this at the last minute is just really unseemly. Glad to respond to questions.
Are these major changes that they're proposing?
I gather there are. I haven't seen it. We got the 242. You know, we just got it, and staff's taking a first look at it, and I guess there are some substantial changes to it. I don't know what they are, and I haven't had a chance to look at it.
When you say it's hard to deal with people who don't keep their word, are you talking about Speaker Dowd?
No, I'm talking about Speaker Dowd, who agreed to removing the cash and removing the House highway earmarks. He agreed to that. I don't know what he's objecting to. If he's got a couple of things in there that I put in, which I believe reflected our agreement. If he finds those objectionable, he has had 2.5 days to pick up the phone, call me, and say so. But the staff, who promised last Thursday they'd have a draft on the end of Monday, so we can work this thing out in advance. This is on the health care premium bill, and now provides it at 2:42 this afternoon. I mean, you can't negotiate with people who, first of all, just complain. You know, we've done all the work. Our staff, my commissioners, have done all the work on these 3 bills over the last couple of months. We've had meetings with certain legislators. We've had incorporated those changes. We've met with staff, incorporated those changes. But in terms of taking the initiative on those 3 bills, it's been entirely this office. And our people have done a fabulous job. And all we get back is, well, we don't like this, or we don't like that, or maybe we're thinking about doing this, and we'll get back to you. I mean, they're not willing to take a shared responsibility for changing the things they don't like and putting together something that we can agree upon. And, you know, that's the responsibility of leaders, is to lead and not just to lay back and criticize what somebody else is proposing.
Governor, you've mentioned a couple of times this week that Speaker Dowd and Senator Bakk are out of town. As you know, they're in the Virgin Islands. Should they have canceled that trip and stayed here and done this work?
Well, Senator Bakk has agreed to my proposals. So, I mean, there's nothing further to negotiate with him. Speaker Dowd disagrees with my proposals and has not been in communication with me to explain why he disagrees and what needs to be done. So I would say that's a major barrier to trying to resolve whatever these differences are. I don't even know what they are.
So should they have canceled the trip?
Could have at least picked up the phone. I think they have phone service in the Virgin Islands.
Well, Governor, are you trying to make an issue of that? Obviously, you addressed it to him in the Virgin Islands. You mentioned
that's where he is.
To Hawaii. Are you annoyed, frustrated? Do you think it's inappropriate?
Well, I'm frustrated. I had no communication with him since December 2nd. I was in Hawaii on a family vacation last week. He said that he was going to be there. That's you know, certainly defensible. And this week, I don't know when he went down to the Virgin Islands. You know, we got different information about when he's going to be there. But again, he could have picked up the phone. I mean, if he didn't go till, I don't know when he went, but there would have been time to sit down and talk this week and get back on track together. And I have not heard nothing from him. I left a voicemail this morning on his cell phone and heard nothing back. Now I get this letter. I don't think he wants a special session. The business groups are lobbying, saying they don't want a tax bill now because they want a better one for their interests next year. I really believe that, contrary to what he's told me several times, that he doesn't want a special session on the bonding and the tax bills. And that's unfortunate, given that if he said that a couple of months ago, we could have saved ourselves a lot of time and effort. It's apparently going for naught.
Well, on that point, what does this vote for a tax bill in 2017 if we get no tax bill now?
I don't know. I mean, I assume they're going to have a tax bill. I'll have a tax bill with some of the items that I found particularly good in this tax bill. The child care tax credit, the working family credit, the assistance for college students, the federal conformity, although that would have to be passed early in the session in order to give Minnesotans that simplicity and that tax relief. And their 2017 tax filings. So we'll have to see what they're willing to do. I can't make any. I'm not making any predictions what they're going to do. I can't predict what they're doing in the next half an hour, so I'm not likely to be able to nail the next 5 months.
Why are you extending the premium deadline until tomorrow?
Well, because we could resolve. I mean, if we can get agreement on language, we could do that. Representative Hortman wanted the language in writing. The bill that I've submitted to the advisor is available in writing. I don't know what changes they made. If they just want to, try. My sense is they don't want to do these bills, and they don't want to take responsibility for not doing the bills, so they're going to make it impossible to do the bills, and then try to blame me, I guess, for the fact that we haven't had a special session.
Including the health care bill?
Well, I wouldn't have said so until 242. But if they've thrown a lot of new items into that bill at this late moment, I got to believe that they're just trying to scuttle the agreement so they can, again, blame me for what they're unwilling to do.
Can you at least characterize, knowing you haven't memorized it yet, obviously, are they wanting to do more beyond the premium assistance?
How would you characterize what they want to do?
Limits that we've said we can't do.
They want to deal with the income limits, which the health plans, which we explained in December 2nd in detail. I'm not happy with the not having income limits, but the health plans who need to administer these rebates don't have the wherewithal to make that distinction, and they've known that all along. I mean, this is not a perfect arrangement by any means. I would be the first to agree with that. I've said that up front, said that in our meetings, but the health plans don't have the ability to do it. So now they want I'd be surprised if they have vetted this with the health plans, because if they did, they'd find out what they told us, which is they can't do this. They can't administer the program this way. Just as they said they wanted to continuing care for people. I said, that's great. I'm all in favor of that. Talk to the health plans and get them on board if you can, and I'll gladly include that. Well, we heard back from one senator yesterday that they haven't really heard back. I mean, again, every time they've taken a piece of the responsibility for something, they haven't followed through on it. We carried the ball all the way on all three of these bills, and we've done it, spent countless hours doing it, and all they want to do is pick at this and pick at that and find an excuse to back out. And you're leaving 121,000 Minnesotans in the lurch, and that's just dead wrong.
On December 2nd, it appeared that there was a disagreement over whether to use the state surplus or the healthcare access fund to pay for the rebates. Has that been resolved?
I proposed in the bill that we use the healthcare access fund, which is what the speaker wanted.
Governor, given how much hearsay is going on after this December 2nd meeting, and it's not the first time in your working relationship with the speaker and others, is it time to start holding these meetings in public? That's
a very good idea. I'm going to give very serious thought to that. These are not productive, and the end of the session in 2015 trying to resolve in our 4-day marathon at the residence was decidedly unproductive and counterproductive. So, yeah, I think I'm not saying I would never have a meeting this goes to the press, but I'm definitely thinking about that.
Senator or Governor, how big of a difference does it make whether you agree to this health insurance fix next week, or if you do it early in January? When will the premium relief flow to people who need it?
Well, if we passed it next week, it would flow. Will it flow in January? Can it still be reached in January?
8 weeks or so to actually implement it on the invoice system, something like that.
But if we,
so we don't get it for 8 weeks?
But it would be retroactive.
So on the bill you did get, it would be retroactive.
But, so it's another month effect. I mean, if they were to pass this premium relief bill the first week in session, which I will urge them to do, I mean, then we've lost another month. But, I still think, a lot of lip service has been given to the urgency of this situation, which is urgent, and I believe it's urgent, and I've been pressing for this special session just on the premium relief bill for the last 2 months and done everything I can think of to make it a reality. And so if it doesn't happen, I'll be very disappointed. And more importantly, 121,000 Minnesotans will be left in the lurch.
Governor, it seems like all three of these bills especially affect greater Minnesota communities. The healthcare, there's more, obviously, with an individual market. I'd like to hear your comment on that, given the election results.
Well, if you're suggesting a stark inconsistency between all the rhetoric we heard before the election about how, you know, the DFLers and I are, you know, I'm a DFLer too, how the legislators and I are leaving Greater Minnesota out. I mean, these bonding bills got all projects crucial to Greater Minnesota. For example, in Worthington, the Lewis and Clark extension to get the water, which is now to Laverne, after the last bonding bill, to get that in through Worthington and down to the Iowa border. I mean, that's the kind of project that is enormously important to Greater Minnesota. There are all sorts of projects all over the state, the Minnesota State projects, and elsewhere. The tax bill has had property tax relief for farmers. It has student aid. It has child care tax credit. It has all sorts of benefits for Greater Minnesota. And as you said, the health premium impacts most, I think, on Greater Minnesota, although it cuts across everywhere. I mean, anybody who's in that income category is going to be affected. So absolutely, they really turned their backs on Greater Minnesota.
Governor, we're nearing the fourth or fifth special session that never happens. What does that say about your leadership, the Speaker's leadership, and your relationship with him?
Well, it takes two to tango. And I've been on the dance floor for the last 7 months trying to get this resolved. But I can't resolve it with somebody who doesn't want to resolve it.
Switching gears here a little bit, the feds announced that they are not going to renew the lease for Twin Metals. Can you just comment on that, first of all? And second of all, can you also address people in the mining community who maybe were looking forward to these jobs, as they were promised thousands of jobs?
Well, it's a tremendous decision to protect the boundary waters for future generations. And I know President Obama is at the high, I can't say he was involved, but at the highest levels, and two of his secretaries, Secretary Jewell and Secretary Vilsack, I thank them for their decision. I mean, it's a tough call because, yes, it would provide jobs, but they're proposing to build an underground mine that's the size of one wing of the Mall of America, underground, and then haul rock and out and back in for 20 years without a major flaw that would leach right into the boundary waters. Unlike Polymet, which has got a distance to travel if there were a leak, you know, this one is right on top of the boundary waters. I mean, I'm for jobs. I'm for every job possible for northeastern Minnesota. The Polymet project is you know, under review. The SR Steel, we're working very hard with them. Bring that back. I think some of the other mining companies, after the initiatives we took last December with the Chief of Staff McDonough and the changes they made there, have been credited by the chairman of Cleveland Cliffs to have made a difference. So we're pushing on every front. The Louisiana Pacific, the wood products project, which is now tentatively slated for Cook. I mean, we're pushing for every project that's going to create jobs. This is one exception where the danger to a priceless treasure, the boundary waters, is just too great, in my judgment, to bear that risk.
Have you talked to the administration about this?
I talked to the Secretary of Vilsack last week. I've talked to, at this point, they were still under review. I just put in again a request urging that they make the decision they made. I've talked previously with him and with Mr. McDonough and trying to think who else I've talked to the administration. So I've numerous times with the head of the Bureau of Land Management, with not the Forest Service, head of BLM.
Other questions?
On another subject, you said you and the Chief Justice were going to chat about whether you should cooperate on the appointment to the Legislative Pay Commission. How did that come out?
We talked yesterday in the midst of our 7-hour pardon board marathon, and agreed that I would share the names of people. We've had over 200 applicants, and she's had fewer than that. So I'm going to share the list with her, and no obligation, but in case I said, I don't know most people applying. If you know somebody, and then we said we would not try to influence these others' decisions at all, but we would, at a staff level, check after we'd made our next final decisions, just to make sure there are no duplicates, for example. So there'll be, we'll be proceeding independently as the legislation directs, but we will have sufficient coordination that we aren't doubling up.
Do you have to take an applicant, or can you pick Joe Blow off the street if you think that's a better fit?
Good question. Can I take Joe Blow off the street? I think most even with an open appointments process, I could. If you know any good Joe Blows out there, please. But we have a lot of applicants, and I don't have anybody in mind for these spots, and I again don't know most of the people that have applied. So I mean, if people made the effort to apply, and we got well qualified people, then that should be sufficient. I want to just say that I'm just thrilled that former Senator Roger Moe agreed to join the Minnesota State Board. It's just, he is the architect of the merger 20 years ago, and it's a challenging time for the Minnesota State Board, new chancellor they're going to select in February, and then dealing with the changes they need to make there. And I'm just so grateful that he was willing to take on this responsibility. He's Roger Moe. There's nobody better qualified to focus on state government than Roger Moe, and there's certainly no one who better understands the vision for Minnesota State from the beginning. And he's a man of impeccable integrity. If there are any conflicts of interest, I trust he'll recuse himself, as he would have to, and I'm just very grateful he's signed on.
Did you recruit them, or did you?
I did. I took him to lunch at the residence, plied him with Red Lake walleye, and very grateful that he agreed.
So the walleye did it?
I'd have to think, he's from Erskine. It's close enough there. All right, thank you.